The night arrived softly, carrying a silence that felt heavier than sound, and the house seemed to breathe with secrets that had waited years to be heard. I remember the faint glow of the porch light flickering like a warning that had come too late, and the air felt thick with something unfinished, something unresolved, something that would not let the heart rest. This story begins in that stillness, where fear did not shout but whispered, and where truth moved slowly, carefully, like a shadow stretching across the floor. My cousin's voice echoed in my memory long before I understood its meaning, gentle yet trembling, as if every word carried a weight he could no longer hold alone. He had seen signs that I ignored, moments that felt ordinary until they stacked together and formed a pattern too clear to deny. The man next door smiled often, waved kindly, and lived behind a door that concealed far more than friendly gestures and quiet routines. There was a sense of suspense even in daylight, a feeling that something unseen lingered just beyond perception, watching, waiting, and measuring every step I took. I continued with my days, unaware that my cousin had already tried to shield me with warnings that arrived like echoes after the sound had faded. Write to comment if you feel how silence can be louder than truth when fear delays honesty. The story unfolds slowly, layer by layer, like peeling paint from an old wall to reveal what time tried to hide. Each moment that followed carried a strange tension, a pull between comfort and unease, between trust and instinct. When the warning finally came, it did not arrive with urgency but with regret, and regret has a way of sinking deeper than fear. Amen. 111. My cousin explained how he noticed the man next door watching more than greeting, listening more than speaking, and lingering longer than comfort allowed. He had dismissed his own thoughts at first, believing that suspicion without proof was unkind, yet the pattern refused to fade. By the time he spoke, his voice carried the heaviness of someone who knew delay had consequences. The house that once felt safe began to feel like a stage where unseen eyes followed every movement, and even familiar sounds took on new meanings. Doors closing echoed longer, footsteps outside felt closer, and the night no longer felt like rest but like anticipation. Write to comment and share the moment you realized comfort can shift without warning. It was then that my beloved child with Archangel Michael says, protection often arrives through awareness, not fear, and strength grows when truth is faced rather than avoided. Those words settled into my heart like a steady flame, reminding me that clarity does not come to harm but to heal. The presence felt calm, resolute, and firm, like a hand on the shoulder guiding without pushing. Understanding arrived gradually, not as panic but as resolve, and resolve has a quiet power that steadies shaking thoughts. I began to see how small details form larger truths, and how intuition speaks softly but persistently. The man next door remained outwardly unchanged, yet my perception had sharpened, and with it came a sense of readiness rather than dread. Amen. 222. Days passed, and each sunrise felt like a test of courage rather than routine, yet courage does not always roar, sometimes it simply stands firm. I noticed how my cousin's warning reshaped my awareness, turning ordinary moments into signals of caution and care. The realization did not steal peace but redirected it, anchoring it in mindfulness rather than ignorance. The story deepened as memories resurfaced, moments I once brushed aside now revealing their significance with unsettling clarity. Laughter that lingered too long, glances that followed too closely, and silences that spoke volumes all assembled into a truth that could no longer be denied. Write to comment if you have felt how hindsight sharpens what time once dulled. In the quiet of reflection, I felt another gentle assurance, and my beloved child with Archangel Michael says, "You are never alone when awareness walks beside you." Those words brought steadiness, not alarm, reminding me that guidance often arrives through inner calm rather than external force. Strength unfolded as patience, and patience allowed wisdom to settle fully. I chose not to confront with anger or fear, but with boundaries shaped by clarity and self-respect. Each decision became deliberate, each step measured, and each action guided by an inner sense of balance. The story was no longer about threat but about reclaiming control through understanding. Amen. 333. There was a turning point when I realized that the warning, though late, was still a gift, because it arrived in time to change the ending. My cousin carried guilt for his delay, yet I carried gratitude for his honesty, and together those emotions formed a bridge toward healing. Silence had been broken, and in its place stood truth, steady and unyielding. The man next door faded into the background of my life, not through confrontation but through conscious distance and quiet resolve. His presence lost its power as my awareness grew, and what once felt ominous now felt manageable. Write to comment if you believe that knowledge reshapes fear into understanding. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed how strength does not always announce itself but reveals itself through consistency and calm. My routines returned, yet they were infused with mindfulness, each moment grounded in presence rather than habit. The experience had transformed my perception, leaving me wiser without leaving me bitter. It was then I understood that warnings, even delayed ones, serve a purpose beyond their timing, because they awaken awareness that lasts longer than fear. The story no longer haunted me, it educated me. In that education, I found peace that was deeper than ignorance and stronger than anxiety. Amen. 444. Time continued its gentle march, and the memory of suspense softened into a lesson etched quietly into daily life. I carried the experience not as a wound but as a reminder of the importance of listening, observing, and trusting inner signals. Each day felt more grounded, more intentional, and more aligned with self-protection. My cousin and I spoke often after that, our conversations filled with understanding rather than regret. His warning, once a source of guilt, became a shared commitment to honesty and vigilance. Write to comment if you feel how shared truth strengthens bonds beyond silence. There came a moment of reflection where gratitude replaced fear entirely, and I recognized how growth often emerges from discomfort. The presence of calm guidance lingered, not intrusive but reassuring, like a steady rhythm beneath the noise of life. I felt anchored, aware, and quietly empowered. The man next door eventually moved away, leaving behind nothing more than a memory that no longer held power. What remained was clarity, resilience, and a deeper trust in awareness. The chapter closed gently, without drama, yet with lasting impact. Amen. 555. As the story settles into its conclusion, it leaves behind not tension but wisdom shaped by experience. The warning that came too late still arrived with purpose, guiding me toward a safer, more conscious way of living. Each memory now serves as a reminder that awareness transforms vulnerability into strength. I share this not to alarm but to illuminate how subtle signs deserve attention and how delayed truth can still protect. Write to comment if you feel that stories like this carry lessons meant to be shared, not hidden. In sharing, understanding grows, and understanding fosters collective strength. My beloved child with Archangel Michael says, trust the quiet guidance within, for it leads toward clarity, safety, and peace. These words settle like a gentle seal on the heart, closing the story with reassurance rather than fear. The journey ends not in suspense but in calm awareness, a place where wisdom resides. This story stands as a testament to listening, learning, and living with mindful courage. It reminds us that even when warnings arrive late, they can still shape a safer tomorrow. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. Amen. 666. The silence after everything changed did not feel empty, it felt full, as though the walls themselves had absorbed the tension and released it slowly back into the air. Morning light returned with a gentleness that had been absent before, touching familiar corners of the house with renewed calm. What once felt watched now felt witnessed by awareness itself, steady and unshaken. I moved through my days with a different posture, not guarded by fear but supported by understanding that grew stronger with each breath. The memory of suspense lingered like a distant echo, reminding me how close uncertainty can live beside routine. Yet this echo no longer disturbed my peace, it sharpened my presence and strengthened my resolve. The warning, though delayed, had planted a seed that continued to grow quietly within me, shaping how I listened and observed. I noticed details with clarity rather than suspicion, allowing discernment to guide each step. Write to comment if you feel how awareness transforms the ordinary into something purposeful. Amen. 777. As time unfolded, the story deepened beyond a single moment or person, revealing layers of personal growth that could not have emerged otherwise. I began to trust my inner rhythm more fully, recognizing how subtle guidance often speaks through calm impressions rather than loud alarms. Life resumed its flow, yet with a steadiness that felt earned rather than assumed. There was comfort in knowing that safety does not always come from external change but from internal alignment. Each interaction carried intention, each choice reflected mindfulness, and each pause offered clarity. The experience reshaped my understanding of strength as something quiet, consistent, and deeply rooted. In moments of reflection, my beloved child with Archangel Michael says, clarity is a shield forged by awareness, not fear. Those words settled again like a gentle affirmation, reinforcing the calm certainty that had replaced anxiety. Protection felt less like defense and more like balance. Amen. 888. The house itself seemed to respond, breathing easier as tension dissolved into stillness. Sounds returned to their rightful places, footsteps became neutral, and nights reclaimed their restful nature. The memory of the man next door no longer stirred unease, only recognition of how perception can evolve. I learned that delayed warnings carry lessons beyond urgency, teaching patience, humility, and the courage to face truth without resentment. My cousin's regrets softened into mutual understanding, and our bond strengthened through shared honesty. Write to comment if you feel how forgiveness lightens the weight of memory. Everyday routines regained their simplicity, yet they felt richer, infused with awareness that honored both intuition and logic. This balance became a quiet companion, guiding decisions without pressure or doubt. The story continued not as a warning but as a testament to growth. Amen. 999. The passage of time revealed how moments of suspense can become sources of wisdom when met with reflection rather than fear. I carried the experience forward, not as a burden but as a compass that pointed toward mindfulness. Each day felt intentional, grounded, and aligned with inner peace. There was gratitude for the warning that arrived when it did, even if later than expected, because it awakened a deeper sense of responsibility toward self-awareness. The experience taught me to listen without urgency and to observe without judgment. Calm replaced caution, and clarity replaced confusion. My beloved child with Archangel Michael says, strength unfolds when truth is embraced gently and consistently. Those words resonated deeply, sealing the lesson with reassurance and calm. Awareness no longer felt like vigilance but like harmony. Amen. 1111. As the story continues beyond these words, it carries forward a message of quiet empowerment and steady presence. The suspense that once shadowed the beginning transformed into wisdom that illuminated the path ahead. What remains is not fear but understanding, not tension but trust. This journey stands as a reminder that even late warnings can guide us toward safer, more conscious living. It shows how inner clarity reshapes experience and restores peace without confrontation. Write to comment if you feel how stories like this linger to strengthen awareness. The narrative does not end abruptly, it settles gently, leaving behind a sense of completion rooted in growth. Calm awareness now defines the space where uncertainty once lived. And in that calm, the story finds its true resolution. Amen. 1212. The calm that followed did not arrive suddenly, it unfolded slowly like dawn easing into the sky after a long night. Each breath felt deeper, each step steadier, as though the ground itself had become more reliable beneath my feet. What once felt fragile now felt rooted, shaped by experience and strengthened by awareness. There was a quiet dignity in moving forward without needing to explain the past to anyone else. The story lived within me as understanding rather than fear, and that made all the difference. Write to comment if you feel how inner peace grows when lessons are accepted instead of resisted. The memory of suspense softened further, turning into a reminder that awareness is a companion, not a burden. It walked beside me without demanding attention, offering steadiness through presence alone. Life resumed its natural rhythm, calm and unforced. Amen. 1313. As seasons shifted, I noticed how change no longer unsettled me the way it once had. Experience had refined my instincts, teaching me to recognize subtle shifts in energy without panic or assumption. This awareness felt like maturity rather than caution, a quiet evolution shaped by reflection. The house became fully mine again, not just a space I occupied but a place that reflected balance and intention. Walls felt lighter, nights felt longer in the best way, and mornings carried promise instead of tension. Write to comment if you feel how spaces respond when the heart finds peace. What lingered most was gratitude, not only for the warning but for the growth it initiated. Gratitude has a way of dissolving the sharp edges of memory, leaving behind wisdom that feels usable and kind. In that gratitude, the story found continuity rather than closure. Amen. 1414. I began to notice how often people ignore their instincts simply to preserve comfort. This realization did not bring judgment, only compassion, because I understood how easy it is to delay truth when uncertainty feels safer than clarity. My own journey had shown me that clarity, even when delayed, is always worth embracing. Each interaction carried a new level of attentiveness, not suspicion but presence. I listened more carefully, observed more patiently, and trusted the quiet signals that once felt insignificant. Write to comment if you feel how awareness sharpens without hardening the heart. The past no longer tugged at my thoughts, it rested calmly where it belonged. Reflection replaced rumination, and understanding replaced regret. The story continued to teach without repeating its tension. Amen. 1515. Time proved that resilience is not built in moments of peace but revealed after moments of uncertainty. I carried myself differently now, not because I was afraid, but because I was aware. That awareness shaped confidence that did not need validation. The warning that once felt late now felt perfectly placed within the larger arc of growth. It arrived when I was ready to understand it fully, and readiness matters more than timing. Write to comment if you feel how lessons arrive when understanding is prepared to receive them. Life continued with simplicity, yet that simplicity felt intentional rather than accidental. Each day carried quiet strength, shaped by experience and guided by clarity. The story lived on as wisdom rather than memory. Amen. 1616. As this chapter stretches forward, it carries no urgency, only steadiness. The suspense that once defined the beginning transformed into awareness that gently supports each step ahead. Nothing needed to be undone, only integrated. I share this continuation not to extend fear but to extend understanding. Growth does not end with realization, it deepens through living. Write to comment if you feel how stories continue to teach long after the moment has passed. The narrative settles again into calm, not because nothing happened, but because something meaningful was learned. Awareness now stands where uncertainty once lingered. And in that space, peace remains. The awareness that stayed with me grew quieter yet stronger, like a current beneath calm water that never stops moving. I carried it into ordinary moments, into conversations, into silence, and it shaped my reactions without demanding attention. What once felt like vigilance softened into wisdom that flowed naturally through daily life. I noticed how peace is not the absence of memory but the acceptance of it without resistance. The story no longer replayed itself with sharp edges, instead it rested gently as a reminder of how perception evolves. Write to comment if you feel how understanding settles the mind more deeply than forgetting ever could. Days blended into one another with ease, and the sense of being anchored replaced the old habit of scanning for unease. I trusted my pace, my space, and my inner steadiness, knowing it had been earned through reflection. Life felt honest, unforced, and quietly resilient. Amen. 1717. With time, I learned that growth does not announce itself, it reveals itself in how calmly one responds to the unexpected. Situations that once might have stirred discomfort now passed through me without disruption. This calm was not indifference, it was confidence shaped by awareness. The environment around me mirrored this shift, as routines felt lighter and interactions carried more intention. Nothing dramatic needed to happen for peace to be present, it simply arrived through consistency. Write to comment if you feel how steadiness becomes a form of strength. I carried gratitude for every lesson embedded within the experience, even the uneasy ones that initially resisted understanding. Gratitude refined the memory until only wisdom remained. In that refinement, balance took root. Amen. 1818. I found myself more patient with others, recognizing how often people move through life unaware of subtle signs around them. This patience came from empathy rather than superiority, born from knowing how easily clarity can be delayed. Awareness expanded outward as compassion, not judgment. Moments of stillness became meaningful rather than empty, offering space to reflect without tension. Silence no longer carried weight, it carried rest. Write to comment if you feel how stillness can become a sanctuary. The story continued to integrate into who I was becoming, not as a defining feature but as a supporting layer. It strengthened discernment without hardening the heart. In that balance, peace remained steady. Amen. 1919. As life unfolded further, I realized that safety is often an internal alignment rather than an external condition. When inner clarity is present, circumstances lose their power to unsettle. This realization grounded me more deeply than any reassurance ever could. The warning that once echoed faintly now stood fully understood, neither ignored nor overemphasized. It had done its work and stepped aside gracefully. Write to comment if you feel how lessons know when to release their hold. Each step forward felt intentional, guided by calm awareness rather than reaction. The narrative of fear dissolved completely, leaving behind only insight. What remained was quiet confidence. Amen. 2020. The continuation of this story lives not in tension but in steadiness, carried forward through mindful living. Nothing needed to be added or taken away, only lived through with presence. Growth settled naturally into everyday life. I share these words as an extension of understanding, not as a warning but as affirmation of awareness. Experience shaped clarity, and clarity shaped peace. Write to comment if you feel how stories mature into wisdom over time. The journey remains open, calm, and grounded, defined by awareness rather than apprehension. What once began in suspense now rests in balance. And in that balance, life continues gently.